Every night at exactly 2:14 a.m., someone stands outside my window. I know how impossible that sounds. I live on the third floor of a building with no balconies, no fire escape, no convenient ledge where someone could stand. There's just an open drop into the alley below. And yet, every night since I moved in, I've woken to see a figure standing there, perfectly still, as if gravity means nothing. The first night I saw it, I thought I was dreaming. I had moved in that week, still living out of boxes, my muscles sore from carrying furniture up 3 flights of narrow, splintered stairs. The apartment was quiet that night, too quiet. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen, the pipes clicked now and then, but otherwise it felt like the whole building was holding its breath. At some point after midnight, I woke suddenly. No noise, no nightmare, just wide awake, staring into the dark. For a few moments, I couldn't figure out what had pulled me from sleep. Then I heard it, a faint scrape, like a fingernail dragging across glass. My eyes drifted to the window, and I froze. There was a shape standing just outside. At first my brain scrambled for an explanation. A shadow cast by a passing car? A trick of the light? But the silhouette didn't move. It didn't waver when I blinked, didn't dissolve when I held my breath. It just stood there, tall and unnervingly still, facing me. My pulse pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. With trembling fingers, I reached for the lamp on my nightstand. The second the light flicked on, the window was empty. I rushed to the glass, heart hammering, pressing my forehead against the cold pane. The alley below was empty. No ladder, no ropes, no one running away. I barely slept the rest of the night. The next morning, in the safety of daylight, I leaned out the window to check again. The wall below was sheer concrete, no ledges, no handholds. Even if someone had climbed up, they would have had to cling there like a spider. I told myself I'd imagined it. I was exhausted. Moving is stressful. Maybe it had been a dream that felt too real. But the next night, it happened again. This time, I woke just before 2:14 a.m., like my body knew what was coming. I lay in bed staring at the clock, my chest tight with dread. When the numbers flipped, I turned my head toward the window. The figure was there. Same position, same stillness. It didn't knock, didn't speak. It just stood there as if it had been waiting the whole time. My throat went dry. I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture. My hands shook so hard the screen blurred. When I checked the photo, my stomach dropped. There was nothing there. Just an empty window. That was somehow worse than seeing it. I stayed awake until dawn, every muscle tense, staring at the glass. By the third night, I was a wreck. My coworkers noticed my pale face, my bloodshot eyes. "Rough week?" someone asked. I forced a laugh, told them I hadn't been sleeping well. I almost told them the truth, but what would I say? That a phantom visits my window every night. They'd think I'd lost it. That night, I decided to wait for it. I turned off all the lights, sat in the chair across from the window, and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. The ticking of the clock was deafening. Every creak of the apartment made me jump. When the time hit 2:14, my breath caught. The figure was there. My body locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't look away. The room felt colder, as though all the warmth had been sucked out. For what felt like minutes, we just stared at each other, me gripping the chair until my knuckles turned white, it standing there in perfect stillness. And then, slowly, deliberately, it raised a hand and pressed it flat against the glass. I gasped, stumbling back. My chest ached from how hard my heart was pounding. When I finally managed to turn on the light, the window was empty. I stayed up until sunrise, shaking, listening to every groan of the building, every faint sound from outside. When morning came, the room felt safe again. Almost. I forced myself to walk to the window. My legs felt heavy, my breath shallow. And then I saw it. A single, pale handprint on the outside of the glass. Larger than mine. I touched my palm against it, feeling the cold radiating from the glass. My hand was small by comparison. Whatever had been there wasn't just real, it was big. I told myself I'd move the next day. Break the lease, leave the apartment, find somewhere else. But that night, when the clock hit 2:14, I was still sitting in that chair, staring at the window, waiting to see it again. The night after I saw the handprint, I told myself I wouldn't look. I taped the curtains shut, turned my bed so I was facing the other wall, and left the hallway light on like I was a kid again. But at 2:14, I woke up anyway. I didn't hear anything this time. No tapping, no scrape of nails, but I could feel it. That heavy weight pressing against the apartment, the air thick and wrong. My heart started racing, my skin prickling, as if some part of me already knew it was there. I stayed perfectly still, refusing to turn around. But curiosity gnawed at me until I couldn't stand it. Slowly, silently, I rolled over. The curtains were moving. Not much, just a slow ripple, like a breeze was pushing them from the outside. But the window was closed. I wanted to scream. Instead, I grabbed my phone and called Alex. It rang twice before he picked up, his voice groggy. "Dude, it's 3 in the morning," he mumbled. "I think there's someone outside my window," I whispered. "Then call the cops," he said, sounding annoyed. "They wouldn't believe me." "Alex, it's the 3rd floor. There's no way someone could be out there." Silence on the line. Then a soft laugh. "Man, you've been living there a week. You're freaking yourself out. Get some sleep." "I saw a handprint this morning," I hissed. "Outside. Bigger than mine." Another pause. Then, more seriously, "Okay, that's creepy. But you're sure you're not just imagining things?" "I'm staring at the curtains right now. Something's behind them." The line went quiet for a long moment. "Do not open them," Alex said finally. "I wasn't planning on it. Sleep with the lights on. I'll come by tomorrow. You probably just need to get out of there for a bit." We hung up, but I didn't sleep. When morning came, I checked the window. No handprint this time. The glass was spotless, as though nothing had ever touched it. That should have comforted me. It didn't. The next night, I stayed awake on purpose, sitting in the chair again, phone in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. I wanted proof. Something I could show Alex. Something to prove I wasn't losing my mind. At 2:14, the figure appeared. This time, it was closer. Not pressed against the glass. Not yet, but definitely nearer than before. My breath caught. I raised my phone and started recording. The seconds ticked by in agonizing silence. The figure didn't move until it did. Slowly, it lifted its arm. My hand shook so badly the camera nearly slipped. The figure's hand hovered in the air for a long moment, then pressed flat against the glass. A sound rang through the apartment, soft but sharp, like a fingernail tapping. Tap, tap, tap. I scrambled to my feet, heart thundering, and flicked on the light. Empty. I stopped the recording and played it back, but the screen was black. No figure, no hand, no sound except my own ragged breathing. That was the night I stopped pretending it wasn't real. I barely ate the next day. Every time I passed the window, I felt my stomach twist. I considered calling the landlord, but what would I even say? "Excuse me, there's a phantom outside my apartment every night?" That evening, I sat on the floor in the hallway, back against the wall, staring at the closed bedroom door. I couldn't bring myself to go in. And still, when 2:14 came, I found myself standing there, staring out into the darkness. The figure was already waiting. This time, its head tilted, just slightly, as though it was studying me. I should have turned on the light. I should have run. Instead, I took a step closer. My own reflection in the glass was faint, just a shadow of a shadow. The figure didn't mirror me. It stayed still, head cocked, as if it was amused by me. Then, without warning, it raised both hands and slammed them against the glass. I stumbled back, crashing into the chair, my scream caught in my throat. The window rattled in its frame, but the glass didn't break. I flicked on the light, and again, it was gone. But this time, 2 fresh handprints remained, both larger than mine. By the end of that week, I was a wreck. I had stopped pretending that any of this was normal. I barely ate. My coffee maker ran nearly 24 hours a day just to keep me awake, because I was terrified of what I might see if I let myself sleep. Every night, I told myself I wouldn't look. And every night, as the clock crawled toward 2:14 a.m., I found myself sitting up in bed, my eyes fixed on the curtains, waiting. On the 7th night, I decided to stop running from it. I turned off every light in the apartment except for the faint lamp in the corner. I made myself a strong cup of coffee and sat in the chair across from the window, blanket wrapped tight around my shoulders. I set my phone to record and balanced it on the edge of the nightstand. The minutes leading up to 2:14 were unbearable. Every tick of the clock was too loud. My skin tingled, my stomach knotted. I could hear my own pulse in my ears. When the numbers flipped, I didn't have to wait. The figure was already there. But it was closer this time. Not just a silhouette in the dark anymore. I could see its outline clearly, the slope of its shoulders, the way its head tilted as though it was studying me. I didn't move. My breath came slow and shallow. And then it moved. Slowly, deliberately, it raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. The sound was soft, but I felt it in my bones, a hollow thump that echoed in the still apartment. My phone kept recording. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might drown out the sound entirely. Okay, I whispered to myself, though my voice was shaking. Okay, you wanted proof. You're getting it. I lifted my own hand, trembling, and held it a few inches from the glass. The figure mirrored me, but just slightly too late. My stomach turned. I took a step closer, my legs barely obeying me. For a long moment, we just stood like that, my hand almost touching, its hand pressed flat on the other side. Then, slowly, frost began to spread from where its palm rested, spiderwebbing across the glass. The temperature in the room dropped. My breath came out in clouds. I could feel it, not just the cold, but the pressure of something on the other side. Like it was leaning closer, pressing harder, trying to break through. And then it did something new. Its head tilted further, unnaturally far, until its face was nearly upside down. I stumbled back, my shoulder hitting the chair. The figure didn't move away. It pressed its other hand against the glass. 2 handprints now, both larger than mine. The glass began to tremble. A sound rose up from deep within the wall, a low, vibrating hum, like the building itself was groaning. I wanted to turn on the light, but my hand wouldn't move. Then, from beyond the glass, I heard it, faint, distorted, but unmistakable. My own voice. Let me in. I froze, every muscle locking in place. The figure leaned closer until its face was inches from the glass. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. It was me. Not exactly. The features were off, wrong somehow, like a bad photograph. But it was my face. My eyes staring back at me. My mouth curling into a smile that felt too wide, too sharp. Let me in, it whispered again, and this time I could feel the words vibrate in my chest. I stumbled backward, knocking over the chair. My phone clattered to the floor, still recording. The figure's smile widened, and then the glass rippled. Not cracked, rippled, like the surface of a pond. I couldn't breathe. My whole body screamed at me to run, but my feet were rooted to the floor. The figure lifted one hand slowly, dragging its palm down the glass. Wherever it touched, the frost melted, leaving a clear trail. And then it reached toward me. The glass bulged outward, just slightly, as though something on the other side was pushing through. I finally managed to move, stumbling to the lamp and flipping it on. The figure vanished. The glass stilled, but the handprints remained. I didn't sleep at all that night. When morning came, I checked my phone. The video was there, but when I played it, the screen was black. No figure, no frost, just me, pale and shaking, whispering to myself. I slammed the phone down on the nightstand and buried my face in my hands. If it was just in my head, why were the handprints still there? Why could I still feel the chill radiating from the glass hours later? And most terrifying of all, why? When I looked at my reflection that morning, did it smile just a second too late? I didn't go to work the next day. I couldn't. I sat in the hallway staring at the closed curtains like they might open on their own. Alex texted me around noon. You alive? I typed, erased, then finally sent. Didn't sleep. Something's wrong with this place. He replied almost instantly. I'm coming over. Don't. I texted back. There was a pause. You're scaring me. At least open the window and prove it's empty. No. I didn't hear from him again until evening. By then the sky had gone gray, and I had worked up the courage to walk into the bedroom. The curtains hung still. The glass was clean. I stood there until my reflection almost felt like a stranger. At 10:30 p.m., Alex called. I answered on the first ring. You sound awful, he said. There's a man outside my window every night. I whispered. But it's not a man. And it looks like me. He was silent for a long time. I'm coming over. No, I said too loudly. Not tonight. Then leave. Stay at my place. I can't. I didn't explain why. I couldn't. That night, I didn't bother lying to myself. I set the chair across from the window, turned off all the lights except for the lamp in the corner, and sat with my blanket wrapped around me. My phone recorded from the nightstand. When 2:14 came, the air shifted. The figure was already there. Closer than ever, face pressed to the glass. This time I could see its features clearly, my features, only wrong. Sharper cheekbones, darker eyes, a smile too wide to belong to me. What do you want? I asked. Its lips moved slowly. I didn't hear a sound, but I could read them. Asterisk switch places. Asterisk. My breath fogged the glass. I shook my head. It didn't vanish. It didn't even flinch. It just pressed its palm harder against the pane. Frost spread out from the touch in delicate, branching veins. I raised my hand until it hovered just an inch away. The temperature dropped instantly. I could feel the cold radiating from the glass, feel something pulling at me, gently, steadily. My phone buzzed, and I jumped so hard the chair scraped the floor. It was Alex again. "Pick up," I muttered, snatching the phone. "Open the door," he said. "I'm outside." Before I could answer, there was a knock. I froze. "Don't open it," I whispered. "What?" "Just stay there," I begged. But I heard his footsteps retreat, then the buzzer downstairs, then the echo of his shoes on the stairs. "No," I said, backing away from the window for the first time. When he knocked again, I opened the door an inch, then yanked him inside. "What the hell is going on?" he started, but then he saw over my shoulder. The figure hadn't moved. It didn't need to. "That's," he whispered. "It wants me to let it in." He grabbed my shoulders. "We're leaving." Before I could move, the glass rippled like water. The frost spread to the edges of the frame. My reflection smiled wider, almost triumphant. "Don't look," Alex said, pulling me toward the door. But I couldn't stop. I stared until the window cleared. The figure was gone. On the glass, in thin letters traced through condensation, 3 words appeared. "See you tonight." I didn't leave the apartment the next day. I thought about it. I even stood in the hallway with my shoes on and my hand on the doorknob. The outside world felt close. 3 flights of stairs, a few steps to the street, people and noise and lights. But every time I tried to turn the knob, a cold shiver crept up my arm and across my back, as if something in the apartment was warning me not to go. So I stayed. I spent the day sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing, drinking coffee I couldn't taste. The apartment felt heavier, quieter. The clock ticked more slowly, or maybe it just felt that way. By evening, I had made up my mind. Tonight would be the last night. I pushed the chair even closer to the window. I wanted to see everything clearly, to end the waiting. My phone was fully charged and set to record. The blanket was around my shoulders, though I was already shivering. At 2:10, the air started to change. It always happens right before 2:14. The stillness, the weight, the sense that something is standing just outside time. My heart was hammering, but I stayed seated. My palms were slick with sweat. When the clock ticked to 2:14, I pulled the curtains apart. The figure was there. But tonight it wasn't just standing still. It was moving. Its head tilted, then tilted further, unnaturally far, like its neck was made of wet rope. Its hands pressed against the glass, leaving white frost blooming in star-shaped patterns. Its mouth moved. This time I heard it. Not out loud, not through the air, but inside my skull, vibrating through bone. Asterisk, let me in. Asterisk. I swallowed hard, but my voice came out steady. Why? The smile widened. Asterisk, you're tired. I can take your place. You can rest. Asterisk. The glass rippled like water. I stood up slowly, like I was in a dream, and stepped closer. My breath fogged the glass. The figure leaned forward until our faces were separated by just the thin pane. Behind it, I saw movement. Dozens of other silhouettes, faint but real, standing in a row behind the first. All of them facing me. All of them smiling. My knees nearly buckled. What are they? Asterisk, others who said yes. Asterisk. A pressure built behind my eyes, sharp and cold. I gripped the window frame until my knuckles went white. I'm not opening it, I whispered. The figure's expression didn't change. Asterisk, you already have. Asterisk. The glass bulged outward. This time, a hand broke through. Not mine. It was too pale, too long, dripping with something black and slick. The fingers clawed at the air, searching. I screamed and stumbled backward. The figure pressed harder. The glass stretched like skin, and another hand began to push through. I grabbed the lamp and hurled it at the window. It shattered against the frame, sparks flying, the room plunging into near darkness. For a heartbeat, the figure vanished. Then it reappeared, closer, its face now inside the room, pushing through the membrane of the glass like a mask being pressed against plastic. I turned to run, but the door wouldn't open. The knob turned uselessly, as though the lock had melted. Asterisk, stay. Asterisk. The voice was louder now, vibrating through the floor, through the air, through me. I spun back toward the window. The figure's shoulders were through now, its chest pushing the glass outward as though it had no bones. In desperation, I grabbed the curtain rod and yanked the fabric down, covering the window. The room went still. No sound, no movement. I stood frozen, breathing hard. My ears rang with the silence. Then, from behind the curtain, came 3 slow taps. Tap, tap, tap. I backed away until my legs hit the bed and I collapsed onto it. My phone was still recording on the floor, its red light blinking steadily. The taps stopped. I dared to breathe again, and then the curtain began to rise on its own. Something was pulling it upward from the other side. No, I whispered, scrambling to the far corner of the room. No, no, no. The curtain slid up until the glass was fully visible. The window was empty. My reflection stared back at me, pale and shaking. Then it smiled. And I didn't. It pressed its hand to the glass from the inside. I watched in horror as a matching handprint bloomed on my side of the window, as though the barrier no longer mattered. The reflection leaned closer. Its lips moved, perfectly in sync with mine though I hadn't spoken. Asterisk, tomorrow, you won't wake up. Asterisk. The handprint faded, but the smile stayed. The recording on my phone clicked off on its own. And somewhere deep in the walls, something started knocking, slow, patient, counting down the hours until nightfall.